Hi guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. So today I want to talk to you about the books that I've read during October. I read 20 books this month. I did not mean to read that much. I had no intention of reading that much. It just kind of happened. So I'm going to be splitting this wrap up into two parts, which I don't normally do, but because there's so many books and a lot of them I really enjoyed, I want to split this so that this video is not forever and a day long. So let's get into the first half of the books that I read during the month of October. So before we get started, I am going to insert an image here of kind of my stats page that I keep in my reading journal. And you will see that of the 20 books that I read 9 physical books, 3 ebooks, and 8 audiobooks. That is a fairly even spread. In my case, I normally read a ton of audiobooks and not so much on the physical side of things. So I was really happy with that number. And then you'll also notice that my age category spread, like how the books are spread out across the age categories, is also very even. I have 8 middle grade, 5 young adult, and 7 adult. So that to me was really good. As far as genres go, I read 1 nonfiction, 6 sci-fi fantasies, 3 mystery thrillers, which I typically don't read any, so that was good, 2 contemporary romance, 1 historical fiction, and then 7 that I just kind of lumped into a general fiction grouping. Of the books, I got 14 of them from the library, and I owned 6 of them, and then 7 of them were graphic novels. So that's not too bad for me. I typically read a few graphic novels throughout the month, but because the number of books I read this month was so high, I assumed that that number would be a little bit high. I did DNF 2 books this month, which I'll also talk about in this video. And then as far as my ratings go, you'll see that I only had 1 5-star book, but I had 11 4-star books, which was pretty good, and 6 3-star books and 2 2-star books, and then no 1-star books. I don't typically rate books 1 star. If it's going in that direction, I typically just DNF them. So anyway, so those are kind of my reading stats for the month if you're interested in things like that. But let's get into some of these books. So I figured I would start with the Scythealong read along. So for that, I ended up reading both Scythe and Thunderhead. The Toll comes out in November, and so hopefully I'll be picking that up in December because my reading month for November is already crazy. But I did make it through both of these. I really liked this series, so I won't go too much into Thunderhead since that's a sequel, and pretty much you're just gonna have to read Scythe first to figure out what that's about. But Scythe follows this kind of utopian society where death has been eradicated. They have cured all diseases. They can bring you back from any death, besides like if your body is completely disintegrated. So like fire, acid, those sorts of things. If your body is consumed in some way, then they can't bring you back from that. But bodily harm, like jumping off of buildings or being penetrated by things or, injuries of that sort, they are able to bring you back from the dead, basically. And so death is really a thing of the past. And so in order to deal with this and to deal with the earth not getting overpopulated, they have designated scythes, which are humans that go around and kill people, basically. And so these human scythes, there is a scythedom, which is their like community of scythes, and this is about 2 teenagers, I think they're both 17 years old, that get chosen to be scythe apprentices. So, and we just kind of follow that story, and it was really good. There were a few things in here that I was kind of not the biggest fan of, but overall, I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I also gave Thunderhead 4 stars. Thunderhead was one that I struggled with because there were a couple of plot points in this that I just could not get on board with. I am the type of reader where things have to be believable for me to buy into it. And there were a couple of scenarios in this one that I'm like, nope, I'm out, you know? And so, however, all of that being said, the last part of this book, the ending, was primo. I loved the ending of this. So I'm very excited for the Toll to come out and to be able to read that. So 2 4-stars. Very excited I was able to get these done. And thank you to everybody who joined our read along. Emily at Books for Life and I both hosted it, and we had so much fun. I had so much fun having conversations with everybody as they were reading it. We were also able to use the Caravan buddy reading platform, and that was amazing. So if you have not already looked into that buddy reading website, there is an app that you can download that goes with it too. It is phenomenal for buddy reading. They have a feature where you can block text that is like spoilery. So as you're reading it, you can type out what your thoughts are and not have to worry about other people being spoiled for it. And I loved that feature. So definitely look into that if you haven't already. But yeah, so those were the first 2 books that I read this month. Now getting into my Gilmorathon reading experience. So I'm going to start with the 2 books that I DNF'd because they were both books that I had intended on reading for Gilmorathon. The first book is Frankly in Love by David Yoon. This was one that I had meant to read for the Asian representation and the complicated love interest prompts for this readathon. I made it about 25 to 30% into this audiobook and had to DNF it. There was so much completely unnecessary swearing and foul language in this that I couldn't even read it anymore. I'm the type of person, or I'm the type of reader, person, whatever, that I don't mind swearing in books if it has a purpose and if it's there for a reason, you know, if it's intentional. This was just flippant teenagers, and that's the other thing too, is this was a YA book and it was full of F-bombs and just, I could not. I ended up giving up on it. I was really bummed out because I had heard really good things about this, and I'm sure that the actual like complicated love interest part of it would have possibly been great, but I could not push through and deal with it. So I ended up DNFing this, and then I went to go pick up I'm Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee to fulfill the Asian representation prompt since I didn't use Frankly in Love. And that one was just, you could tell that, I don't know if it was the author's first book, but I just was not a fan of the writing style. It was too simplistic. There were a couple of plot points that it seemed were just kind of thrown in there for to say, oh, this has such and such representation. And it was like just kind of thrown in under the rug. And I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff. I had other books that I was more interested in reading, and so I DNF'd this one. I probably made it 15 to 20% through this one as well and called it quits. So those were the 2 books that I DNF'd this month, and they were both to fulfill those prompts for Gilmorathon. However, I was able to read quite a bit for Gilmorathon. So the first book that I read was Talking as Fast as I Can, From Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls and Everything in Between by Lauren Graham. This is a memoir that she wrote. I did listen to the audiobook of this. It was fantastic. It's narrated by Lauren Graham, and she just does such a great job. I will say, if you have not watched the show, do not read this book because it is chock full of spoilers for the show and for The Year in a Life. And so it just, yeah. However, I will say, if you only listen to the audiobook and you did not pick up the physical book, I would go back and see if you can find it, because it does have, as do most nonfiction memoirs, it does have different pictures and things in it that she references. And I don't know, I like being able to look at the pictures and stuff in books when I'm going through it, especially memoirs. So anyway, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It wasn't quite good enough to be a 5-star read in my opinion, but definite 4 stars. Really enjoyed it. Glad that I read it. All right, the next one that I read, and this was for a book with food on the cover or as part of the story, and this is Midsummers Mayhem by Rajani LaRocca. This is a middle grade retelling of Midsummer Night's Dream. And apparently this author is doing a bunch of different Shakespeare retellings for middle grade. So I was looking at her works on Goodreads, and she has quite a few that are coming out that are all kind of Shakespeare tie-in sort of things. This one was good. It was, I don't know, it was not my favorite middle grade I've ever read, but I'm not a huge follower of Shakespeare. I think if I like really loved Shakespeare, then I might like this one more. There was definitely a huge Shakespeare presence in this book, but it is about this little girl. Oh, what's her name? I'm not gonna be able to remember now. Oh, Mimi. This little girl, Mimi, who wants to enter a baking competition for a local bakery, and after she gets started, she realizes that her baked goods are having more of an impact on her people that surrounding her than what she realizes, and they're all starting to act a little funny. And then she runs into this guy in the woods. She's out in the woods, and she runs into this guy that she's never seen before, and and he starts giving her like tips on what she can do to improve her cooking and or baking, and it was fun. But like I said, I think if I was bigger into Shakespeare, I would have liked it more. I ended up giving it 3 stars. But I am glad I read it, and it was very cute. And there are kind of throughout it, let me see if I can find one of them. There are different illustrations that were kind of fun too. So so that fulfilled that challenge. And then honestly, I think I'm going to go ahead and say that this filled the Asian representation as well, because this is Indian and India's in Asia. So we're just going to go with it because I didn't hit anything else that filled the Asian representation challenge. For the school setting prompt, I read New Kid by Jerry Craft. This is a graphic novel that is about this boy. It's a little boy of color, and he really wants to go to art school, and his parents decide to send him to this prestigious academic school instead, and he is one of the only kids of color at his school, and so he's having a really hard time fitting in and finding his place, and it's just kind of about his struggles with that. I thought that this was fantastic. My kids asked if they could read it when I got done, and I let them, and they really liked it as well, but it was just good. It was about acceptance. It was about not giving in to like even the adults in the school and how they treated him, and how they would kind of lump all of the black kids in a group and assume like they would start calling him the same name as the other black kid and in the school, and things like that just aren't okay. And so it definitely kind of explored that and how it made the kids feel, and he was able to express himself in his art, which was really good. And it was great. I loved this book. Like I said, it was a graphic novel, so it read really fast. Really fun illustrations. Definitely go pick this one up. I gave this one 4 stars. All right. Then for the complicated mother-daughter scenario, whatever book, I picked up Maria Semple's Where'd You Go, Bernadette? This one, I loved this book. I thought this was so good. I will say, if you have not read this and you're not really sure, what it's about, do not look up the trailer for the movie before you read it, because you will be spoiled. I might have done that. I was probably 80% of the way through the book, and I'm like, oh, I know that there's a movie of this. I wonder when it comes out. And when I got into researching it, I went and I came across a trailer and watched it, and totally spoiled. I was right in the middle of the good part of the book too, where you're like, where is Bernadette? Where did she go? And you're like trying to figure it out. And then I watched the trailer and I'm like, oh, that's where she is. Okay, never mind. So I was kind of bummed out about that. So don't do that. But other than that, this is the story of Bernadette, who is a mom, and her daughter B. Um, what was her name? Her name was B, but it was like something really fun. But her daughter B, her daughter is really smart, and her parents told her that if she got perfect grades throughout all of middle school, that she could pick anything that she wanted. They would give her anything she wanted. And so she decides she wants to go on a cruise to Antarctica. And her mom, who is agoraphobic and has anxiety and just has a lot of mental health issues, kind of has a complete mental breakdown. And yeah, and so this is told through letters and different like it's kind of, I don't really know how to explain it. It's journal entries and letters and stuff, and it's from the point of view of B, and she's trying to figure out where her mom went because as part of her mental breakdown, she disappears, and B has no idea where she went. And so she's going through all these journal entries and letters and emails and things like that. And then occasionally in it, you will get B's story, like that's just like in novel form. And I don't know, this was just so good to me. I love this. I did give it 4 stars. It wasn't, like I said, wasn't quite good enough to get 5 stars, but honestly, this might be one that inches up. Like if I gave half-star ratings, I'd probably give this 4.5 stars because I really did enjoy it. But yeah, so this one was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed my time reading that. All right. Then I read Alex plus Ada Volume 1. I read this ebook in ebook format. This is a graphic novel that is, I use this for the complicated love interest story since I DNF'd Frankly in Love. This is the one that I used for that prompt. Like I said, it is a graphic novel. It is about this guy, Alex, who his grandma gifts him an android that it like looks like a human to be his companion, and Alex isn't okay with that. He's like, this is weird. She's just a robot. She doesn't have any feelings. How can I make her to where she's more realistic and has an opinion about things and whatnot? And so he kind of goes into cyberspace and wants to open her up to where she can be more human like. So this was the first in a trilogy of graphic novels, and it was good. It wasn't great. I gave it 3 stars. I would be interested to see kind of where the story goes from where we left off, because in this first book, we really don't get a lot of the relationship aspect, which I was hoping for, but it's kind of a human-android relationship story, so that's why I counted it for the complicated relationship. But yeah, so 3-star read. Like I said, I would be interested to see, I am interested in reading volumes 2 and 3, just to kind of see where the story goes from here. But I read that. I also then listened to Us Against You by Frederick Bachman. This is the second book, or the sequel to Beartown, which I read last month and is like one of my favorite books of the year, hands down. So I went right into this one, and this one was really good as well. Not as good as Beartown, but really, really good. Beartown is a book that explores a hockey town in Sweden that one of the star player on the hockey team rapes a girl in town. And so this is following the aftermath of this. And so a lot of the hockey clubs kind of segregated. Half of the team like followed the boy, the hockey player. Half of the team stood their ground at, and defended the girl and really wants to stay in town and help their hockey club grow. And so this one did have a lot more politics in it, which I wasn't a huge fan of. It was good. I really love Frederick Bachman's writing. But like I said, not quite as good as Beartown. 4-star read, really enjoyed it. And then I also read Pumpkinheads, and this was for, the Us Against You I used for the sequel. That was one of the challenges. So that was that. And then after that, I read Pumpkinheads, and I used that for the cozy fall winter setting book. I loved this book. I've heard mixed reviews on it. Some people are just like, meh, it's okay, whatever. I thought this was the perfect book to read in October. So this book follows our two main characters. I don't even remember what their names are now, but it's a girl and a guy, and they work at a corn maze fall festival, harvest festival, whatever area that's, one of the seasonal places. And they work there, and it's Halloween night, and it's their last night of the season. It's their senior year of high school. And so they've been working together for like 4 years seasonally. This is the last time they're ever going to see each other again, so they think. And so they're like, we're going to make the most of it. The boy has had a crush on another girl, that works there for years and has never told her. So the girl main character decides that he's going to talk to that girl. This is their last night. They have nothing to lose at this point. We're going to find that girl. We're going to go talk to her. And so they end up kind of going throughout the whole festival area, and it is a trip. They just stop at different stands. There's a bunch of food in this, different fall harvesty foods and bonfires and hay rides, and it was just so fun and so great, and I loved it. It's a great story of friendship, and it's just cute. The illustrations were amazing. I did read this in ebook format because that was the quickest way I could get it, and yeah, it was fantastic. 4 stars. I just love this for October. I might have to reread this every October because it was just that much fun. So that's it. Those are the books that I read for Scythealong and Gilmorathon. So I'm going to leave you here. And then I will also be posting a part 2 where I will go over the remainder of the books that I've read during the month of October. So stay tuned for that for sure. As always, if you have read any of these books, I would love to hear your comments down below. But other than that, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you stick around and subscribe. And until next time, see ya!